You met someone who felt like home before you even knew their name, and that should have been your first warning, because real love does not feel like a storm, it feels like a quiet morning. But this person did not arrive quietly, they arrived like a hurricane, and you mistook the chaos for passion, because you had never felt so alive in your entire life. They saw you, they heard you, they understood you in ways no one ever had, and you thought, finally, this is it. This is the person I have been waiting for. But what you did not know was that you were not being loved, you were being hunted, and the person standing in front of you was not looking for a partner. They were looking for a mirror, someone who would reflect back everything they wanted to see, and you were the perfect mirror because you had been trained your entire life to reflect others, to make them feel seen, to make them feel valued, to make them feel whole. And you gave them everything you had, and they took it. And they took more, and they kept taking until there was almost nothing left of you. And then they left, and you were left wondering what happened. How did someone who made you feel so alive leave you feeling so dead? And the answer is not simple, but it is clear. Carl Jung would recognize this as a collision of two wounded psyches, the empath and the narcissist, two halves of the same psychological wound, and the relationship between them follows a pattern so predictable that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Today, I am going to show you the 4 stages every empath goes through with a narcissist, and the 3rd stage will break your heart, because it is the moment you finally see the truth, and once you see it, you can never go back. But before we get there, we need to understand something fundamental about both the empath and the narcissist, because the empath is not a victim, they are a participant, and the narcissist is not a monster, they are a wounded child who learned to survive by taking what they needed from others. And
the empath learned to survive by giving what they had to others, and these two survival strategies fit together like two pieces of a puzzle that should never have been put together. And this is where the first stage begins. Stage 1 is called the idealization, and this is the stage where the empath falls in love not with the person standing in front of them, but with a projection of their own denied power. The empath sees the narcissist as strong, confident, capable, and fiercely independent qualities. The empath has buried deep within their shadow, and the narcissist sees the empath as caring, nurturing, emotionally available, and endlessly forgiving qualities the narcissist has buried deep within their shadow, and they project these qualities onto each other, and they fall in love with a fantasy, and the empath says, "You are everything I wish I could be," and the narcissist says, "You are everything I wish I had," and they both believe they have found the missing piece of themselves, but neither of them has found anything real. They have found a reflection of what they are missing, and they mistake that reflection for love. And this is why the first stage feels so powerful, because the empath is not just falling for the narcissist, they are falling for the version of themselves that the narcissist represents, and the narcissist is not just falling for the empath, they are falling for the version of themselves that the empath represents. And it is a beautiful illusion while it lasts, but illusions always shatter, and that brings us to stage 2, the depletion, and this is where the empath begins to lose themselves, because the narcissist requires constant attention, constant validation, constant admiration, and the empath gives it because that is what empaths do. They give, they nurture, they heal, they fix, and they believe that if they give enough love, enough patience, enough forgiveness, the narcissist will finally see them, finally value them, finally become the person they were always meant to be. And the empath gives until there is nothing left to give, and the narcissist takes until there is nothing left to take, and the empath becomes exhausted, depressed, anxious, and empty, and they do not even realize what is happening because they are too busy trying to save someone who never asked to be saved. And this is where the empath's shadow begins to surface, because the empath is not just giving, they are giving because they are afraid that if they stop, Giving they will be abandoned, and they have been afraid of abandonment their entire life because someone abandoned them when they were young, and they made a silent promise to never let that happen again, and they would do anything to keep someone from leaving, even if it meant losing themselves in the process. And the narcissist senses this fear and uses it to keep the empath trapped, and the empath stays because leaving feels more terrifying than staying in. This cycle continues until the empath has almost nothing left, and that is when stage 3 begins, and this is the stage that will break your heart because stage 3 is the awakening, and this is when the empath finally sees the truth, and the truth is devastating because the empath realizes that the person they have been fighting for does not exist. They have been in love with a projection, a fantasy, an illusion, and the real person standing in front of them is not capable of giving them what they need because they do not have it to give, and the empath realizes that they have been chasing a ghost, and the ghost was never real, and this realization shatters the empath completely because they have given so much sacrifice, so much endured, so much, and for what? For nothing, for someone who never really loved them, for someone who only loved what they could take. And the empath looks in the mirror and does not recognize the person staring back because that person is broken, exhausted, and empty, and they ask themselves, who am I? And the answer is terrifying. They do not know because they have been so focused on the narcissist that they forgot to take care of themselves. And this is the moment when everything changes because the empath has two choices. They can stay in the illusion and continue to be drained, or they can face the brutal truth and begin the long, painful journey of reclaiming themselves. And this is where Jung's concept of individuation becomes essential, because individuation is the process of becoming whole by integrating all parts of yourself, including the parts you have projected onto others. And for the empath, this means reclaiming the power they projected onto the narcissist. And this brings us to stage for the integration, and this is the stage where the empath finally breaks the cycle. And they do not break the cycle by finding a better partner, they break the cycle by finding themselves. They stop looking for someone to save them, and they start saving themselves. They stop giving their power away, and they start claiming it as their own. They stop trying to earn love from people who cannot give it, and they start giving that love to themselves. And this is not easy. This is the hardest work they will ever do because it requires them to face the parts of themselves they have been running from. It requires them to look at their wounds, their fears, their patterns, and to understand why they were drawn to the narcissist in the first place. And when they understand that they were drawn to the narcissist because the narcissist mirrored their own unhealed wounds, they begin to heal. And as they heal, the narcissist loses their hold on them because the narcissist was never attached to who they really were. They were attached to the energy they provided. And when that energy stops, the narcissist leaves. But by the time the narcissist leaves, the empath no longer cares because they have finally found what they were looking for, not in someone else but in themselves. And this is the real victory of the empath, not leaving the narcissist but becoming someone who no longer needs a narcissist to feel whole, because the empath finally understands that they were never broken, they were just wounded, and wounds can heal, and patterns can break, and cycles can end, and the empath can finally allow themselves to receive the love they have always deserved, not from someone who takes, but from someone who gives, not from someone who drains, but from someone who fills, not from someone who breaks, but from someone who heals. And that is the kind of love that transforms, the kind of love that sets you free, the kind of love that reminds you that you were always worthy even when you forgot. And while understanding human emotions and psychology can help us understand relationships better, ultimate guidance and strength come from God, because every heart, every connection, and every moment of our lives exists within His knowledge and wisdom. So I want to leave you with a question: what would change if you stopped trying to save someone who never asked to be saved and started saving yourself? Because the empath's greatest gift is not the ability to heal others, it is the ability to heal themselves. And when they do, they become unstoppable, and they never attract a narcissist again because they no longer need to be completed by someone else. They are already whole and That is the most powerful thing a human being can become. So if this message resonated with you, share it with someone who might be fighting their own painful cycle, because sometimes the right words at the right time can change everything. And if you are ready to continue this journey of self-discovery, subscribe to Winds of Thought and turn on notifications, because the deepest truths about ourselves are rarely found on the surface. They are discovered when we have the courage to look within and understand the hidden parts of who we truly are.